Bye.
Oh, bye.
So welcome everybody to week 6 of our webinar. I'm really excited that we've got Mena on our webinar tonight, who is going to talk about and has talked about before, and I think this is going to be slightly with a different angle this time, but about our mountains and the mountains that we all have to climb in life. And sometimes they're just little bumps in the valley, and we can kind of see over them, and up and down we come. And sometimes they're pretty steep challenges and curves and lots of things that we have to actually do before we get the top. And then guess what? We actually have to come down those mountains. And sometimes that downhill can be just as challenging for some as the uphill. And so I am thrilled to have Mena speak about the mountains, the challenges, and how she's overcome all of that, and shows up so present for everybody in her life all of the time. So welcome, Mena.
Thanks, Tracy. I could see there's, I think, about 3,000 people viewing tonight, which is a record for us. So that is awesome. First of all, thanks, Tracy, for hosting this every week and having us here tonight and bringing us together. So one of those typical days in your life where, you're going from here and there and delivering children back and forth. So it's been a busy evening, but a fun evening, as usual. So I saw the time. I thought, well, Tracy knows I always talk way too much than I probably have time to. So I'm going to focus on 3 topics actually tonight: resiliency, choice, and control. So those are sort of the areas that I had to really educate myself on. And it might not have been with intention, but a matter of fact, I had no choice but to address those areas in my life. And one area that I got really good at, which I didn't realize, was being resilient. I learned quite quickly that through trauma, you become a lot stronger, and you also prepare yourself for your next trauma, which at some point in your life, you want to say, well, okay, haven't I had enough now? I don't need any more practice. I don't want to put this into practice anymore. But this is just the reality of what life has thrown me. So addressing that. Resiliency. How resilient are we, and how resilient can we become? I'm not afraid to share with people how my resilience has been built up, but we don't have time to get into all the details. So sorry, you're going to miss on the nitty gritty. But I will address it through clinics. And as you can imagine, all of us have a story, and we all have life traumatic events. And whether you're in our childhood or in our teens, or life things that happen with your partners, or through loss, or through critical illness. And I probably could tick all of those boxes to different degrees. But we all have a story, and the most important piece is what choices we make when those traumatic events hit our life. What pieces can we actually control, and being to identify with them. Am I able to control this piece? Yes or no? How is that going to serve me? And if I can, then great, now I have a choice. If there's something that I can't control, there is no choice. So am I going to spend my energy on that? Spending my energy on something that I don't have a choice over, it's not going to build my resiliency. In fact, it's probably going to beat down my confidence and my will and my want to make things better, because I have no choice over it. I have no control over it. So speaking of resiliency, what I can control and my choices. One thing I identified really quickly was you have no control over this moment. I have control over right now. What I'm about. After that, I have no control. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if there's going to be an earthquake that's going to end our webinar, and 3,000 people will be lost wondering what the next line is going to be. Got to tie that in. I have nothing else than the moment that I'm living in. And that took a while to really embrace and actually accept and believe that the only thing we can control is the moments that we're living, present, and being present with them. And how are we going to do that? So then when the uncontrollable situations come, I have, again, moments given to me of, now, what am I going to do? This has happened. So I was bent and determined to always put a positive spin on everything that was going to cross my plate. I was fortunate last week to address a group of school district employees on a professional development day. And, you know, you're talking to people that don't know all your life experiences and kind of sharing with them snippets of it quickly and telling them how you were able to make the best of some awful situation. So one example, most of you know, one of our boys had cancer. We went through 3.5 years of cancer treatment, living in and out of hospitals, experiencing, I'd say, extremely difficult, scary moments. But I was still determined to have fun with my child and for him to relate cancer treatment to fun as best as we could. So most people don't put chemotherapy and fun in the same sentence. So how do we do that? I had a choice. We could, you know, put him in the car and talk about how awful the treatment was going to be that day, and it was going to probably make him sick, and he probably wasn't going to feel very well, and to really stress the importance for him to not to touch anything or breathe on anybody or let them breathe on him. I could have focused on that. So what did we do instead? We got him a motorized little handheld scooter. A good friend had heard me chatting, hooked me up with one. We put on fun jerseys that he got from the Tour de Rock riders that represented him that year. We made sure we went to the corner store across from the hospital after treatment and got his favorite sausage rolls. We made the best of treatment, and we made that our choice and our decision, and that was our focus. Did we ever talk about the awful things that happened at the hospital when, you know, his body would twerk uncontrollably, things a mother has no control over? No, he didn't even remember. He was given a drug that allowed him, his body and his psyche, to actually suppress that information. They actually call it an amnesia drug. There's a component in it. I didn't have control over that, but when I realized Jack didn't have any memory of it, I had a choice because I knew I had the control to whether I wanted to bring it up or not. So why would I do that? Now we've got this awful situation. We made it positive, and that's how we remember it. And to this day, you know, we're gearing up almost 8 years after the fact. We still only talk about the positive moments of a very traumatic event. So those were choices I had, and I had control over what choices I had around that situation. Other things that I like to practice is simply breathing. You know, we might not think about it, but we actually have the choice of breathing every day. We can hold our breath. We can decide if we're going to breathe shallow. We can decide if we're going to breathe with our whole body. So whenever I find that life gets stressful for me or a situation is stressful, I actually make the choice to stop and do 10 deep belly breaths. So if you want to take one right now with me, if you're thinking, wow, like, you know, I've never really thought about my breath, just take a breath. This is your one piece of your living existence that you can control. I say that we have control. Very good. I see some of you practicing. That's great. I say we do have control of all the positive choices that we make. So for example, I get up in the morning, I have a choice. I can start my day with a walk up and down the street. I can start my day with taking my dog Stanley for a little walk around the block. Or I can start my day with, I've got to get those emails done. I've got to get them sent. I've got to start my day. Do an experiment with yourself. Try it. I can tell you that when I've done go straight to the computer, get those emails done, you still never get them all done. You never get everything finished on the to-do list. But when I inject little 5 or 10 minute breaks of just get out and walk out the door, my well-being is increased. I feel lighter. I feel more positive, and I can manage did I almost say the wrong word? Not circumcision.
There we go.
Circumstances. Much better. But you know what? That brings me to my next one on my list.
Oh, no.
Laugh at yourself. Like, have fun with it. Be willing to take those chances and have fun with it. So I'll share a story with you. Last week it was my birthday, and it was a hockey game where big brother Marty plays, and my youngest Jake is the stick boy. And in between the second and third period, they all have a parent and child shootout. And it's typically the dad and the son. I contacted him and said, I really want to do the shootout. I didn't tell him it was my birthday until he said, I really want to do the shootout. So I knew that I really didn't have a hope of making the shootout, but I really wanted to do the shootout. I really wanted to see Jake do the shootout because he would love it. So we showed up with our skates on because that would be the first thing. I'm not following the rules of wearing the running shoes. I don't go on the ice unless I have skates on. So that was a choice and something I could control. I went with it. Jake was just as thrilled. So we had a little skate around. We've had fun with the pucks. You know, I pretended I was going to cheat at first and put them on the blue line. Him being a little kid, he usually gets to go on the blue line. He wants to go at center ice. And then he scores. Like, it was the most exciting thing I could have ever wished for on my birthday. And meanwhile, while I was watching him shoot, I was kind of keeping my pucks, thinking, you know, maybe if he doesn't get them in, I'll give him 3 and 4, or, you know, give him a couple more chances. Once he scored, then it was all mine because I needed a chance to score. And then the 5th and final puck came to be shot, and I still was nowhere near the hole. I was close. I thought, well, I'm going to cheat and have fun with it. I mean, you could say you're cheating, but it's having fun with it. So I took the puck right in, and I still missed. So it was a choice I made, and then the clincher was hearing your 10-year-old say to you publicly in front of everyone, Mom, that was so embarrassing. You even missed when you cheated. But the point was that we had fun with something together. I took a chance, put myself in a very vulnerable position. Being on the ice isn't vulnerable. That part I could control, put my skates on. But we had fun with it. So you might think, well, what's that got to do with all the traumatic events in your life? If you make your list of the things you can't control and the traumas that you get faced or dealt with no choice over, you got to somehow balance out the teeter-totter. So my event with Jake balanced out the teeter-totter a little bit. Like, this is something that 10-year-old boy will never forget. He stood at center ice in the middle of one of his favorite arenas, no pun intended, but a rink, and he got to shoot the puck. And not only did he get to shoot the puck, but he scored. And the fans went wild, including his mom, who was supposed to be against him. I can't be against him. I'm jumping up and down. It was so exciting. So it balanced out my, you know, really tough stuff that you have to deal with those memories that you're going to cherish forever. Other things I decided to do when I had negative things come in life is turn them into a positive, giving back. Touch base with someone from your past. It might be someone that was in your life at a time when things were really difficult, but that person made it positive. I talk about my grade 6 teacher, Mr. Doug Edwards. I talk about him in the back of the manual that I wrote for Soul Sisters. Mr. Doug Edwards was the epitome of instilling fitness into children's lives. It didn't matter if you were good, great, awesome, or not any good at all. It didn't matter. He made sure the gym was open at 7:30 every morning at the school. He made sure he stayed late and taught the soccer ball, basketball team, volleyball team. I was fortunate to live near him in my neighborhood and got to walk home with a PE teacher, which I thought was pretty cool. But he reminded me over and over that if you had a place to go and be physically active, you'd be happy, healthier, you'd make friends, the social connectivities that you had in those groups. It was awesome. And I took what I learned in grade 6. Well, other stuff in my life weren't that great in grade 6. And he was my breath of fresh air. So I always relate my first love and passion to physical activity outside of the rink, because I was lucky I had that, thanks to my mom and dad, from bringing me to the rink from when I was very, very young. But he introduced me to physical activity outside of the rink. Believe it or not, when you are a rink rat, you think that's the only place that you go and be physical active. So he introduced me to all those other sports. So my give back to him, when I say, you know, give back to someone, I wrote that little piece in the book, and I sent him a book. This is when I wrote the first one, probably about 7 or 8 years ago now. And I folded it up in a Soul Sister shirt for him. I knew his wife, so I knew she'd get that piece of it. I mailed it to him. And I got the most lovely response back, an email. And shortly after that, we went for lunch together, the 3 of us, Mr. and Mrs. Edwards and I. Actually, I remember him saying at lunch, "You don't need to call me Mr. Edwards anymore." But he was Mr. Edwards. He was my grade 6 teacher. So it was a great way for me to feel that connection. I didn't realize how much my thank you to him was going to impact his life. And that was really shared in a strong message back in the email. And then him inviting me for lunch with him and his wife. It was just awesome. And since then, which makes the story even that sweeter, he's been a part of Team Jack Marathon Relays. He's an annual Kids Run volunteer. Him, his wife, his 2 daughters. You know, there's no more. That was my teacher way back then. Mr. Edwards is still a positive, impacting person in my life. I had a skating teacher, the same thing. She carried me through difficult times in my life as a skater. We were high pressure sport. And Leslie Farr, I remember doing a similar thing. I talk about Leslie in my book. But just because I know we're short on time, I'm going to talk about a couple other tools that I like to use. So the giving back, pay it forward. Do something totally random. You know, we don't know what's going on in other people's lives. I love to randomly call up a soul sister in the group. I recognize the name because I'll recognize all the names from the registration list, but I might not put a face to the name. And I'll just say something random like, hey, come see me. I've got something for you. Then I get to put a face to the name. They come to the table. Oh, Mena, you sent me a note. Quite often they'll say something like, do I owe you something? Did I forget something on my registration? I said, no, I want you to have this. And I give them something, a piece of Soul Sisters. And they usually say, well, why? I say, just because I really want you to have it. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad you found Soul Sisters. I'm so glad you came up to the table tonight. Do something random. Maybe you do it for a person who lives down the hallway in your building. Maybe you do it to a coworker. It feels great. I'm going to talk about that feeling great piece. In the fall, I took a philosophy of leadership class. And I remember reading a line about giving, gratitude, volunteering, what that gives you. And one great philosopher actually says that it's one of the most selfish moves we ever make is volunteering. At first I thought, selfish. I never thought of myself as selfish. But volunteering gives such great rewards that our psyche will begin to thrive it. We will want to volunteer more because it's such a remarkable way to feel good when you see someone else feel good. And that really is what Soul Sisters is all about. The vision of Soul Sisters is give to each other, cheer each other on across the finish line. Don't worry about if someone's faster than you. Worry about them if they're not coming again on Tuesday. Don't worry if you didn't make your PB time. But maybe think about that woman that said, oh, I wish I signed up and never did. Maybe grab a free pass and give it to her next time you see her. Those are the pieces that help all of us get and experience the best finish line ever. So giving, volunteering, a great way to get through those traumas, come down the mountain. Those are a few of the things I want to talk about. I'm just going to end with, I always say I would never, ever hide the fact I go see Dr. Cook, who's a psychologist. I think, we're so in tune and in routine to say, oh, I went to the dentist today, or I've got to go to the doctor, but I got to go see my psychologist. Say it proudly. Like, we need to take care of our psyche just as much as we need to take care of our physical well-being, just like we take our car for a tune-up. So find people to talk to. Maybe it's not a psychologist. Maybe it's the leaders at Soul Sisters or a good friend you found. Social connectivity, one thing on top of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a sense of belonging. Feel like you belong to a community and make those connections and stay in touch with them. People want to help people. I know Tracy wanted me to talk about coming over the mountain and coming down. So I just thought I'd touch on a couple of things that I thought I would never do. Riding a bike was one, so I thought it's pretty fresh in this year, in particular with the experiences I've been given. I still, to this day, the last time I've been on a road bike is October 7th, when I gladly returned my tour to rock bike and said, thank you so much. That bike helped me see the island in a whole other light. It totally rejuvenated my faith in humanity. It brought me to little corners of Vancouver Island where I saw communities of 300 or 400 or 500 people raise thousands of dollars. It brought me to places where people came together, small communities, all in the same gymnasium to eat dinner. Every single member. And how did they do that? They all made something at home and brought it together. Your good old-fashioned potluck dinner. It brought me to families that had experienced awful trauma, dealing with a child going through awful, awful situations. But I was able to give them just a snippet of hope. I was able to hug that mom and say, I know what you're going through. I'm here for you. How is your day going? How is your son? How's your daughter? And right there, just that connection. When I remember one mom in particular out in Comox looking at me and goes, you have a child that's been ill? I said, I have. And it was like we've known each other for years just because of that common occurrence in our lives that we had no control over. But I had a choice to go and introduce myself and have that moment with her. So that bike I knew was going to give me the vehicle to be able to raise lots of money for a very dear cause. It's going to send 56 kids to camp because of all the people that helped me to raise these dollars, which was very, very rewarding. But could I ride a bike? Well, I could, and I can. Was I scared? Absolutely. Do I want to ride a bike again? Gonna have to have a really good reason to ride, and I would ride again for a great reason. But I realized something that when I was on the ride that was really, really evident for me. I've learned to climb lots of mountains. I've had to climb lots of mountains. I've learned that I have a choice. I want to keep climbing up or give up and turn back, and that's not going to ever be my option. I'm always going to keep going until I hit the top of the mountain. But I'm still working on the letting go piece. Coming down those mountains at 60 kilometers an hour in pouring rain was not a comfortable place for me to be at all. I re-experienced some moments of fear. In my mind, I would actually, have the gremlin. I'll refer back to Tracy's chat about the gremlin on one shoulder saying, yeah, if you wipe out, you're going to end up under that vehicle. Really nice to think, right, when you're going down the hill. And then on the other side going, you're meant to do this. You know what you're doing. You made the right choice. Hold on. You can do this. So it was a really interesting experience for me. I know we're running out of time. I'm going to talk about a few more of these things at a future date, but I'm going to end you with this thought because I had the honor of knowing a young man who spoke years and wiser beyond his years, in fact, and he passed away doing something he loved to do, doing something that for him was probably very comfortable. And it's Reed Kaifuik, and he shared with his mom and dad just a few weeks before he passed. And I wrote it out because these are his words. Which one is it here? Mom, Dad, I want to be a part of making the world a better place. I want to make that happen. And when I learned of those words shared to me by his mom, Denise, who's been a soul sister in the past, I remember thinking, yeah, that's what I want to be. I want to be a part of making this world a better place. I have to get down those mountains. I have to get up them, over them, down them. I have to believe that I can. I have to make the choices that I have control over and just focus on those. And I did this ride, made the final decision when I learned of Reed's statement. I thought, I'm doing this because this is going to be a little piece of making the world a better place. And I know each of us can do it. So go out there, do it. I'll be cheering you on. Thanks for having me, Tracy.
Wow, that was awesome. Thank you, Mena, for sharing that. And you do make a difference. And I hope you know how much of a difference you make to all of us. Every time you show up, you are always making a difference. So thank you for sharing that. And yes, I know there's many more pieces to all of those stories that I'm sure we'll hear about either on future webinars or at Soul Sisters. And I think it's always great when we get to hear those pieces because I know that you inspire me to be a better person and to make the world a better place. And I know you inspire so many others. So thank you so much for sharing that. That was awesome. That was really great. Did you have anything else to add or any last comments before we sign off?
No, I hope I see lots of you tomorrow night at Front Runners downtown. Hopefully people see this ahead of time, but again, it's those little pieces of our community that we're able to go out and embrace and be together and move. So that's it. Awesome. Yeah, thank you.
Great. All right, everybody, have a great week. We'll see you Friday, Tuesday, tomorrow, maybe even out on the lakes.
Every day of the week.
Bye.
Thanks so much, Tracy.
Bye.